Life seemed so simple back in high school. I had a dream and I was willing to work for it. My goal was to travel overseas, to see the world beyond my small town. I worked every weekend and after school, saving every single dollar I could. I washed dishes, I mowed lawns, and I did whatever it took to make that dream a reality. The day I finally bought that plane ticket, holding it in my hand, was one of the proudest moments of my young life. It felt like I had conquered the world. I had set a goal, I had put in the effort, and I had achieved it. That trip was everything I imagined and more. It opened my eyes to how big the world really was. But that taste of success, it was intoxicating. It made me want more, and it made me want it faster. When I came back, I didn't want to go back to washing dishes for pocket money. I saw an opportunity, a shortcut to getting what I wanted. I started a small business, burning and selling pirated movies and video games to other kids at school. It started small, just a few discs here and there. But soon, word got around, and the demand exploded. I was making more money than I knew what to do with. I was the go-to guy, and that feeling of importance was addictive. It wasn't just about the cash, it was about the status. The money started rolling in, and I felt like a king. I was just a teenager, but I had pockets full of cash. I bought the latest gadgets, the best clothes, and I treated my friends to everything. We were on top of the world, or so I thought. I believed that my success was a result of my own cleverness, my ability to see a gap in the market and fill it. I ignored the little voice in my head that told me what I was doing was wrong. I was blinded by the easy money and the fake respect that came with it. I thought I was untouchable, that the rules didn't apply to me because I was smart enough to get around them. The truth is, I was building my entire world on a foundation of lies. I was deceiving my customers, and more importantly, I was deceiving myself. I convinced myself that it was a harmless venture, that nobody was getting hurt. But every dollar I made was a step further away from the person who had worked so hard and so honestly for that plane ticket. I had traded my integrity for a fleeting sense of power. I was living a double life, one where I was a normal student to my family, and another where I was a young, successful entrepreneur. The problem is, a house built on sand is destined to fall, and mine was no exception. The crash came faster and harder than I ever could have imagined. It wasn't a dramatic police raid or a big public bust. It was simpler, and in a way, more painful. A new technology emerged, making it easier for everyone to download what they wanted for free. My business dried up almost overnight. One day my phone was ringing off the hook with orders, and the next, there was just silence. The demand was gone, and just like that, so was my income. The easy money stopped flowing, and the reality of my situation hit me like a ton of bricks. I was left with nothing but a pile of useless blank discs and a whole lot of regret. The silence was deafening. It wasn't just the phone that stopped ringing. Suddenly my so-called friends were nowhere to be found. The same people I had treated to meals, movies, and parties were now too busy to answer my calls. The moment the money disappeared, so did they. I learned a hard lesson, one that sticks with me to this day. Loyalty bought with money is not loyalty at all. It's a transaction, and when you can no longer pay, the transaction is over. The feeling of abandonment was profound. I felt like a fool for believing their friendship was genuine. Loneliness became my new best friend. I was left to face the consequences of my choices all alone. The status I had built, the popularity I had enjoyed, it all vanished into thin air. I went from being the guy everyone wanted to know to being the guy nobody remembered. It was a humbling and deeply painful experience. I had to face the fact that the entire world I had constructed for myself was a complete illusion. The success wasn't real, the friendships weren't real, and the person I had become wasn't someone I was proud of. I had chased a shortcut to success and ended up on a dead-end street with no one to help me turn back. This period of my life taught me more than any success ever could have. It taught me about the true nature of friendship and the emptiness of material wealth. I realized that the things that truly matter, integrity, genuine connection, and self-respect, cannot be bought. I had sacrificed all of that for a temporary thrill and a pocket full of cash. The fall was a painful but necessary wake-up call. It forced me to look in the mirror and confront the person I had become. The journey back to being someone I could respect was going to be a long and difficult one, and I knew I had to start from scratch. Just as I was trying to pick up the pieces of my life, tragedy struck my family. My stepdad, a man who had been a quiet, steady presence in my life, was diagnosed with cancer. He was a good man, a strong man, and watching him fight that terrible disease was one of the hardest things I've ever had to witness. His illness brought a cloud of sorrow over our entire family. We all tried to be strong for him, but seeing him get weaker day by day was heartbreaking. It was a stark and brutal reminder of how fragile life is and how quickly everything can change. His fight was courageous, but in the end, the cancer won. Losing him left a massive hole in our family and in my heart. His death was a profound loss that shook me to my core. I felt a deep sense of grief, but also a sense of regret. I wished I had spent more time with him, that I had been a better son. His passing made all my previous problems, the failed business, the fake friends, seem so small and insignificant. This was real loss, real pain. It put everything into perspective. I realized that I had been wasting my time on things that didn't matter while taking for granted the people who truly loved me. His absence was a constant ache, a reminder of what was truly important in life. But even in the darkest of times, a light can appear. A few years later, something wonderful happened. I became a father. The moment I held my son for the first time, my entire world shifted on its axis. Looking into his tiny, perfect face, I felt a love so powerful and overwhelming it took my breath away. It was a pure, unconditional love that I had never experienced before. He was a new beginning, a reason to be better. Holding him in my arms, I made a silent promise that I would do everything in my power to be the father he deserved. He was my hope, my motivation, my everything. My son became the center of my universe. Every laugh, every milestone, every little moment was a source of immense joy. For a while, it felt like I had finally found my purpose. I was a dad, and that was the most important job in the world. Being a parent gave me a new perspective and a reason to strive for stability and goodness. My son's existence was a bright light that pushed back the shadows of my past. He was my glimmer of hope, the proof that life could still be beautiful and full of meaning, even after so much pain and so many mistakes. He was my reason to keep going. Life, however, has a way of throwing you curveballs when you least expect them. The relationship with my son's mother began to fall apart. The pressures of life, combined with my own unresolved issues from the past, created cracks in our foundation. We tried to make it work, but eventually we had to accept that we were better off apart. The breakup was painful, not just for me, but because it meant I wouldn't be able to see my son every day. Waking up without him in the house was a new kind of emptiness, a daily reminder of what I had lost. My world, which had been so brightly lit by his presence, began to feel dark again. The pain of the separation and the stress of my new reality led me down a dangerous path. I started making poor choices again, falling back into old, destructive habits as a way to cope with the emotional turmoil. I was spiraling, and I knew it. The hope that my son had given me was fading, overshadowed by my own self-destruction. I was losing the battle against my demons, and I was terrified of losing myself completely. I looked in the mirror one day and didn't recognize the person staring back at me. I was tired, broken, and on the verge of losing the one thing that mattered most, my relationship with my son. That was my rock bottom. That was the moment I knew I had to make a choice. I could either continue down this path and lose everything forever, or I could fight for my life and for my future. I thought about my son. I thought about the kind of father I wanted to be for him. I knew I couldn't be that man if I didn't get help. So with every ounce of courage I had left, I made the decision to enter rehab. It was the scariest but most important decision of my life. Admitting I needed help was the first step on a long and difficult road to recovery. Today is July 24th, 2025, and I am here choosing to fight. The path ahead is not easy, but for the first time in a long time, I have real hope. My one true dream now is simple: to get better. I want to heal, to find myself again, and to become the strong, stable, and loving father my son deserves. I hold on to the dream of the day I can see him again, not as a broken man, but as a father he can be proud of. This is my journey to redemption. This is my chance to rewrite my story, and I'm determined to get it right this time, for him and for me.